Palmolive Soap, your beauty hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. After teaching English to the summer school students of Madison High all week long, last Saturday didn't arrive a minute too soon for Our Miss Brooks.
Generally, the thing I like best about Saturday is that it gives me a full 12 hours to speculate upon just how boring Sunday will be. But last Saturday, while I was having breakfast with my landlady, Mrs. Davis, a bombshell was hurled into our usual routine.
That's the front door bell, isn't it, Connie?
Bell is an overstatement, Mrs. Davis. It used to be a bell years ago. Now it sounds like a dying rattlesnake with a frog in its throat.
Connie, I wonder who it can be anyway.
All right, I'm coming.
Maybe you shouldn't answer it, Connie. I've had the strangest feeling of foreboding all morning.
Well, that's silly, Mrs. Davis. It might be good news.
Why?
Or why should it be bad news?
Why not?
Let's have the playoffs when I come back.
Good morning. I have a telegram here for a Mrs. Davis. Are you a Mrs. Davis?
I'm not a Mrs. Anything yet.
Don't tell me I've delivered this telegram to the wrong address. Well, I've never been guilty of that in all my years in the service.
Well, far be it from me to depress one of our boys in uniform. This is Mrs. Davis's house, all right. I just live with her. Miss Brooks is the name.
How do you do? I'm Herbie Terwilliger. That's my bike at the curb.
Glad to know both of you. Now, if you'll give me your receipt book, I'll sign for the wire.
All right, here you are, Miss Brooks. Bottom line, please.
All right.
Yes, I've been in the service quite a while now. This is my 6th hitch.
Really?
Never been a plain foot messenger. Always been with the bicycle squad.
That sounds healthy.
Of course, during my long term of duty, I've made a host of friends both in and out of the service.
I imagine you have. Now, if you'll just...
Of course, I've lost a few of my buddies, too. Good, hard-pedaling boys, all of them.
I'm sorry, Herbie.
Yes, I always think of them when I hear Ghost Riders in the Sky.
That song cheers me up, too. I'll take this telegram in to Mrs. Davis now. Goodbye, Herbie.
Oh, this isn't goodbye, Miss Brooks. This wire has immediate reply requested printed on it. I'll just wait here on the porch until Mrs. Davis gives me an answer.
All right, I'll try to hurry it up for you.
I'll appreciate that. I have a slow leak in my rear tire.
I'll be back in plenty of time to get it vulcanized. Mrs. Davis, it's for you.
What is it, dear?
This telegram.
Oh, I knew it. I knew something terrible was going to happen today.
Terrible, but you haven't even opened it yet.
And I'm not going to open it, Connie. I've only received half a dozen telegrams in my entire life, and they all brought bad news. This is probably some horrible news about Mrs. Dribbleman.
Mrs. Dribbleman?
Yes, she went to Switzerland for a vacation. I warned her not to go. She probably fell off one of those Alps.
Oh, now, really, Mrs. Davis.
I'm psychic about these things, Connie. Poor Mrs. Dribbleman. I can just picture her, skiing down the Alps, not a care in the world. Suddenly, a treacherous curve. She can't make the turn in time. Over the rim she goes. She looks down. Nothing but rocky crags, jagged peaks. Why, Connie, you're not touching your breakfast.
Suddenly, I'm not hungry.
But aren't you going to finish your wheat cakes?
Not until you get Mrs. Dribbleman off those peaks.
I just remembered, Connie. Mrs. Dribbleman took my advice and decided not to go to Switzerland. She's feeling fine.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I don't want to rush you, Mrs. Davis, but this wire calls for an immediate reply. Look, right here on the envelope.
Let's see. Immediate reply requested. Well, I'm sorry, but Wait a minute, Connie. Look where this telegram was sent from. Through this cellophane here. Doesn't that say Springdale?
Springdale? Yes, it does. Why?
That's where Uncle Corky lives. Or maybe now I should say lived. Oh. Poor Uncle Corky. He was always so fond of me. He was my mother's oldest brother, you know. We were very close.
I'll bet he was just like an uncle to you. Look, Mrs. Davis, aren't you being a little prematurely mournful? After all, you don't know that he's
Oh,
not...
but he must be. He was 87 years old on his last birthday, and he's had the hives for years.
Well, maybe he'll outgrow them.
When I think of how Uncle Corky used to play Santa Claus every Christmas, the kids at Madison, the faculty, everybody loved him. You remember him, don't you, Connie?
Of course, Mrs. Davis. He's been coming here every Christmas for years. Here, I'll open this wire and tell you what it says.
No, Connie, no. I won't let you open it. Why should you be the one to bring me bad news?
But, Mrs.
I could never again look at you without associating you with Uncle Corky's passing. I like you too much to allow such a tragic bridge to come between us, Connie. I'll do anything to avoid it.
Oh, but this is ridiculous, Mrs. Davis. Once I've opened it, you'll see how ridiculous...
Today is rent day, Connie. If you leave it unopened, I won't charge you for this week.
Mrs. Davis, I wouldn't open this telegram if you begged me.
You promise, Connie?
I swear it on this stack of wheat cakes. I know. There's a messenger outside waiting for the immediate reply. I'll ask him to open it. Wait here, Mrs. Davis. Oh, Herbie, would you come inside a minute, please?
Oh, sure. Got the answer, Miss Brooks?
Not yet. This is Mrs. Davis, Herbie. Mrs. Davis, this is Herbie Terwilliger.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
How do you do?
Mrs. Davis is a little superstitious about opening telegrams, Herbie. Would you mind?
Me?
Yes, just open it up, will you?
But I can't. That's the first rule I learned in basic training. Thou shalt not monkey with the messages.
Well, we don't want you to monkey with it. Just open it.
I'm sorry, Miss Brooks, but I can't touch it.
Can't we forget about it for now?
Forget about it? But what'll I tell my CO? This is an immediate reply requested.
Can't you just tell him there is no reply?
What? Me tell the chief there is no reply?
Please, Mrs. Davis. That is tantamount to telling the Admiral, sir, there are no boats.
Well, I don't care about the Admiral. I'm going to have another cup of coffee and think this thing over. I'll put enough on for all of us.
All right, Mrs. Davis.
Why doesn't she want to open the telegram, Miss Brooks?
I'm afraid it's sheer superstition with her, Herbie. Oh, pardon me. Well, if it isn't Walter Denton.
Hiya, Miss Brooks.
Come in, Walter. What are you doing up so early on a Saturday?
Well, I just came by to see if there are any odd jobs I could do for Mrs. Davis. You know, to pick up a little pin money.
Well, I don't know about Mrs. Davis, but I'll give you a few pins if you'll do something for me. Come into the living room, will you?
You know I'm your slave, Miss Brooks. What is it?
You can open the telegram.
The telegram?
Yes. Brought by Herbie Terwilliger here when he was a much younger man. Herbie, this is Walter Denton.
Glad to know you, I'm sure.
Hi. But I don't get it, Miss Brooks. Why don't you open it?
Because it belongs to Mrs. Davis, and she asked me not to.
Well, then why doesn't she?
A perfectly natural second question.
Because she's afraid it might contain some bad news.
Well, I'd like to help you out, Miss Brooks, but opening other people's messages is very bad luck.
Please, Walter, not you, too.
You should have been at the Conklin's house with me this morning. I'd sent Harriet a little note, and Mr. Conklin opened it by mistake. It was one of my more amorous epistles. You know, solid goo. His opening it was sure unlucky, though.
In what way?
Right after he read it, he kicked me down the porch steps.
Well, I hate to crash headlong into such a nostalgic moment, but this is getting out of hand. Walter, I insist that you open this wire.
Oh, gosh, Miss Brooks, if you're going to be upset about it, hand it over.
Here you are.
Stop. You can't do it, Walter.
Oh, hi, Mrs. Davis. What's the trouble?
You remember Uncle Corky, don't you?
Uncle Corky? Oh, the old fellow with the beard who plays Santa Claus for us every year. Oh, sure, I remember him. How is he?
He's left us, Walter. I'm afraid that's what this telegram is about.
Really? But if it was about that, wouldn't it have a black border on it?
No, Uncle Corky has a white beard.
He was a nice old guy. Oh, look, why don't we take this wire over to Harriet to open? She's not afraid of anything.
You're right, Walter. Anyone who could live with Mr. Conklin for 16 years must be made of iron. We'll take it over to Harriet, and we'll
You'll
have...
do nothing of the sort. We'll just let it rest on this table for a while.
But how about the answer? It's an immediate...
Don't argue, Herbie. Maybe if the telegram rests for a while, Uncle Corky will feel better.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment. But first, here is Vern Smith.
For bare skin beauty, it's bath-size Palmolive with its famous beauty lather. Yes, bath-size Palmolive for loveliness all over.
There's something thrillingly new in this wonderful beauty lather of bath-size Palmolive soap. New fragrance, new charm, new allure. See if Palmolive in your daily tub or shower doesn't leave your shoulders, arms, and back, yes, all of you, softer and smoother. Completely lovelier all over. You'll thrill to the tender whisper of perfume it leaves on your skin. A whisper that says, come hither to romance.
And this new bath-size Palmolive is so big, so thrifty, economical to use because it lasts so long and gives so much soft, lovely lather so fast.
That soft, lovely lather with its alluring new fragrance is Palmolive soaps alone. Palmolive's famous beauty lather. Yes, a new fragrance, new charm, new allure that can make every woman a vision of delight in the new revealing fashions that show so much more of you.
So remember, for bare skin beauty, it's bath-size Palmolive with its famous beauty lather. Yes, bath-size Palmolive for loveliness all over.
Get bath-size Palmolive soap tomorrow. Menfolk love it, too.
Well, I finally prevailed upon Mrs. Davis to let me take the telegram over to the Conklins to be opened. When I got to their house, Madison's beloved principal was asleep in a hammock, and Harriet was sitting on the porch steps reading. Hi, Harriet. What's that you're reading?
Oh, it's a Western story, Miss Brooks. But please, lower your voice.
Why, don't you want the Indians to hear?
I don't want Daddy to hear you. He's taking a nap on the hammock.
I dropped over to ask a favor of you, Harriet. It'll probably sound pretty silly to you, but, well, you know how peculiar Mrs. Davis is sometimes.
Oh, of course.
She got this telegram a while ago and simply refuses to open it. She insists that it contains bad news.
That is peculiar.
I wouldn't mind so much, but it's an immediate reply requested.
Oh, Herbie. This is Herbie Terwilliger, Harriet.
Pleased to meet your acquaintance, Miss Conklin.
Hello.
All I want you to do, Harriet, is to open the wire.
Me? But why don't...
She can't. She promised Mrs. Davis she wouldn't.
Oh. Well, then why don't you?
He can't. First rule of basic training. He shalt not monkey with the messages. Oh, it's all just a lot of superstitious nonsense, Harriet. Here, tear it open and let's get this over with,
Well, if you think it's all right for a stranger to open Mrs. Davis's wire...
Stranger? You're no stranger to Uncle Corky, Harriet. As I recall, you're one of his favorite kids here at Madison.
Oh, is this wire from Uncle Corky?
Mrs. Davis seems to think it's about him, from his next of kin or something.
Next of kin? Oh, that dear old gentleman. I'll never forget what a kick he got out of playing Santa Claus at Christmas time. And now he's gone.
What is it with that Uncle Corky? The minute you mention his name, people start shoveling. Look, Harriet, all we know is that the telegram comes from Uncle Corky's hometown. If you'll just open it now, we'll...
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Brooks, but I'd rather not. I'm very fond of Mrs. Davis, and I don't want to be the one to find out about her uncle.
Oh, great. What do we do now?
This thing is getting bigger than both of us.
You're so right, Herbie. But now I really must put my foot down.
While you're at it, put your voice down a notch, will you?
Mr. Conklin, I didn't know you were awake.
I wasn't. Now that I am, what is all this about a telegram?
It belongs to Mrs. Davis, Mr. Conklin. She won't open it because it concerns her Uncle Corky.
Uncle Corky? That old fraud?
Why, Daddy! How can you speak that way? Why, Uncle Corky's the best Santa Claus that Madison ever had.
He's a hypocritical old windbag. Time was when I was considered the best Santa Claus Madison ever had.
But, Daddy, you said yourself that putting on that big red tummy was a lot of trouble.
You'll have more trouble trying to get it off. Look, Mr. Conklin, I'm sorry I disturbed your nap, but if you'll just open this telegram for us...
Why should I open it? Why, it makes me mad just to think of that egotistical, spotlight-grabbing old fulf.
What? Don't you see, Daddy? Mrs. Davis is afraid to open the telegram because she thinks it's bad news.
About Uncle Corky.
She's afraid that Uncle Corky will never play Santa again.
But what has Mrs. Davis got to... Never play Santa Claus again? You mean she thinks he's...
Yes, Daddy.
Oh, that poor old gentleman. How well I remember the merry twinkle in his eye. And that rollicking, cheerful voice as he strolled among us. I remember the first time he came to us at Christmas, how artfully he played Kris Kringle. What was it he used to say so cleverly? Oh, yes. Ho, ho, ho.
He ad-libbed every word of it, too. There's something I'd like to remind you of, Mr. Conklin. Nobody knows that Uncle Corky has ho-hoed his last ho. So if you will just open this telegram...
No, I'm sorry, Miss Brooks, but I'll have no part of this telegram. Although not addicted to silly superstition, I see no reason to put the whammy on myself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to continue my nap.
And if you'll excuse me, I'd like to go to lunch. I'm starved.
Certainly, my boy. Just run along.
I'll get a bite at the drugstore, and I'll see you back at Mrs. Davis's house, Miss Brooks.
All right, Herbie. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Herbie.
Goodbye, Harriet. Goodbye, Mr. Conklin.
Goodbye. Now then, Miss Brooks, if you don't mind, Who was that?
That's the messenger boy, Mr. Conklin. We've been going steady since breakfast.
Oh. Well, if it isn't too unreasonable a request, will you and Harriet talk as softly as possible? That is, if you're staying, Miss Brooks.
How could I tear myself away from such a charming host? What are we going to do about this wire, Harriet?
I wish I knew, Miss Brooks. Wait a minute. Maybe we can read the message without opening it.
How? Stick one of our eyes through the little cellophane window?
No. I'll get a candle and hold it up to the back of the envelope. That way you can see what's inside.
Well, we might as well try it, Harriet, because if I don't find out what's going on in Springdale soon, I'll absolutely blow my corky.
Well, I don't know what Springdale's coming to. What kind of a telegraph outfit is this anyway?
Now, simmer down, Corky. You've already waited 2 hours for that immediate reply. Another 5 minutes doesn't matter.
It does when you're 87, boy. Are you sure you sent the message exactly as I gave it to you?
Well, I'll try and dig up the master copy for you. How come you're making the trip at this time of year, Corky? You usually go away around Christmas, don't you?
Well, I used to, but never again. I'm always roped into playing Santa Claus at Madison High School. Darn kids prop me up under a Christmas tree, yank on my beard, and yap jingle bells in my ears. Well, I'd like to beat him over the head with a chimney.
Well, you won't have to worry about Christmas this trip, Corky. You can take advantage of this nice July weather. Play some golf or something.
No, not me. I gave up golf a month ago.
Why?
At my age, I don't feel safe being so close to a hole in the ground. Besides, it's bad for my hives. But I'm going to make this vacation of mine a real wing-ding, boy. You know, my niece has a young school teacher living with her, a real looker, what I mean.
Hot stuff. Hey, Corky?
Oh, she's groovy, Jack.
Oh, here's that wire you sent to Mrs. Davis, Corky. I'll read it to you, shall I?
That'd be just super.
Well, it says, arriving tonight. Please advise if you can put me up. Have 1 week to live a little, and would like to spend it with you. Love, Uncle Corky.
Can't understand what's holding up the answer. Well, I'm taking the next train regardless. Lay out your best bib and tugger, Brooksy. Here I come, laughing and a-scratching.
Hold the telegram a little closer to the candle, Miss Brooks. There. Can you see anything yet?
Yes, Harriet, I can make out 3 words very clearly.
What do they say, Miss Brooks?
Don't write telegraph. Move it a little closer to the flame.
That's too close, Miss Brooks. Look out, the telegram's on fire.
Oh, no.
Miss Brooks, you dropped it.
Well, under the circumstances, Harriet, I thought it highly advisable. You see, I left my asbestos gloves at the laundromat.
Quick, Miss Brooks, step on it.
I'm glad I didn't wear my open-toed shoes today.
What on earth is all this racket? Oh, it's you. Miss Brooks, you dance divinely.
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. This is the step that won me a cup at the fireman's ball.
I see. Well, if you're quite finished with your little flame dance, Miss Brooks, I trust that your next step will be a long one in the direction of your home.
First, we've got to find out what's in the telegram, or what's left of it.
It's from Uncle Corky.
So, the hammy old goat's alive after all.
What does it say, Miss Brooks?
Well, some of it's been destroyed, Harriet. What's left says, arriving tonight, have 1 week to live.
Poor Uncle Corky. I remember when I last saw him. There was a merry twinkle in his eye. And he was hoping he would live to see one more Christmas.
But now he's leaving us.
Wait, I have an idea. Uncle Corky will have another Christmas. Tonight.
Christmas in July?
Harriet, get ready to do some Christmas shopping.
Yes, Daddy.
And Miss Brooks, decorate your living room. Get a Christmas tree, artificial snow, bright colored lights. We're going to give Uncle Corky the best Christmas he ever had.
Oh, Uncle Corky will simply adore this Christmas tree, Connie. It's a silver fir, isn't it?
Yes, it'll match his beard beautifully. I hope the others get here with their Christmas gifts before Uncle Corky arrives. It's already 8 o'clock, and they said they'd... What was that?
Oh, that's Herbie. He fell asleep on the couch this afternoon, waiting for the immediate reply.
Poor Herbie. His CO will think he's gone over the hill. Mrs. Davis, would you plug this in the socket, please? I want to see how the tree looks with the lights on.
All right, Connie. There. How does it look?
Lovely, Mrs. Davis. Really beautiful.
A Christmas tree? Have I been here that long?
No, Herbie. It's still Saturday.
Never mind the day. What's the month?
It's July. You fell asleep on the couch. You've only been here 12 hours.
12 hours? Have you got the immediate reply yet?
What's your rush? Oh, excuse me.
Merry Christmas, Miss Brooks.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. May we come in?
Ho, ho, ho.
You certainly may. Look, Mrs. Davis. A pair of perspiring carolers just strayed in.
Harriet, dear, and Osgood, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
They'll drum me out of the service for this.
Ah, the spirit of the Yuletide is in the air. And what a lovely Christmas tree. And look at those luxuriant pine needles.
That's Herbie. He needs a shave.
But the tree is really beautiful, Miss Brooks.
In 2 years, I would have been up for a pension.
You folks can put your gifts under the tree. Or, excuse me.
Merry Christmas, Miss Brooks.
And a happy Easter to you, Walter. Come into the living room. Friends, we've been joined by one of Santa's little helpers.
Oh, it's you, Denton.
Uh-oh. Look out the window. There's a cab at the curb, and Uncle Corky's getting out of it.
He's here.
Now, let's get together on this. If we're to succeed in brightening his remaining days, we've really got to make him believe it's Christmas. Give him that old Yuletide spirit.
We know what to do, Miss Brooks. Just wait till old Corky topples through that door.
I left the latch off the door, Connie. Come in, Uncle Corky.
Hello, Margaret.
Let him have it, folks.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Ho, ho, ho!
are you ho-hoing about, you big oaf?
Why, Uncle Corky, we want you to have one more real Christmas.
Christmas? What did I do, drop into a nest of cuckoos?
Please, Uncle Corky, we want this week to be the happiest you've ever spent.
Well, then how about getting some of these people out of here and leaving me alone with Miss Brooks?
Did you hear that, Connie? Uncle Corky is fond of you.
Oh, that's very touching, Uncle Corky, but isn't this your last week?
Well, might well be, sis, but what a way to go.
As our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first...
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl.
Tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives you Kay Daumit's magic blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid, Luster Cream shampoo leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed after a Luster Cream shampoo. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, yes, tonight, try Luster Cream shampoo.
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. You owe your crowning glory to a luster cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
As soon as Mr. Conklin discovered that Uncle Corky wasn't on his last legs, he gathered up his Christmas packages, his daughter Harriet, and Walter Denton, and left in a cloud of frustration. Herb Terwilliger left, too, after I had promised him an immediate reply by the end of the year. After Mrs. Davis had gone to bed, I started for my room. Oh, I didn't know you were still up.
How about stepping out for a stroll, Brooksette? There's a full moon.
Why, Errol, what have you been spiking your pablum with? Frankly, Uncle Corky, I'm afraid you're a few minutes too old for me.
Too old? Why, don't you know that the longer a man lives, the more he knows about romance? I may be 87, but I really got the know-how.
You may have the know-how, but believe me, you'll still find it tough to get the who with.
Another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Palmolive Soap, Your Beauty Hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, written and directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch. Mr. Conklin is played by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Gloria McMillan, Joe Kearns, Jerry Hausner, and Peter Leeds.
Here's a money-saving offer, men. A giant tube and a large tube of Palmolive brushless shaving cream for 49 cents. Yes, a 70-cent value for only 49 cents. This offer is made solely to prove you, too, can get smoother, more comfortable shaves the Palmolive brushless way. Just follow directions on the tube and treat your face to wonderful shaves. Yes, for extra shaving comfort at extra low cost, don't miss this Palmolive brushless bargain. At drug and toilet goods counters, get both giant and large size Palmolive brushless. A 70-cent value for only 49 cents.
For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. North Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at the same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Bob Lamont speaking for CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Palmolive Soap, Your Beauty Hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden.
Many school teachers work under different supervision during the summer months than they do in the regular school terms. But not so our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High Summer School.
No, our beloved principal, Osgood Conklin, is very much a part of the deal. As he puts it,
It doesn't matter what time of the year it is, Madison High is my baby.
and to prove it, he holds it up by the heels and slaps it all summer. It isn't that Mr. Conklin's always in a bad humor. Why, there are minutes at a time when he stops frothing at the mouth and the lightning that plays about his head subsides, leaving just a few glowing coals nestled in his mustache. Last Thursday morning at breakfast, I was discussing his latest diabolical device with my landlady, Mrs. Davis. He calls it the Conklin Carelessness Code, Mrs. Davis.
What in the world is that, Connie?
Well, it's a list of petty offenses for which the faculty and students may be fined. Of course, these fines are purely voluntary.
Voluntary?
Yes, like income taxes. The fines all go into a fund which will be used to buy a brand new statue for the library.
What kind of a statue?
A statue of the man whom Osgood Conklin admires and respects more than anyone else in the world.
Who's that?
Who else? Osgood Conklin. You see, when he first thought of the idea, he put a receptacle in the hall for donations marked Osgood Conklin, bust. At the end of the day, he found 6 notes in it reading, "You said it." That's what gave him the idea for the Carelessness Code.
Leave it to Osgood.
You don't have to leave it. He takes it. What bothers me most, though, is the way he takes it. Every time he catches somebody committing one of the offenses, which he makes up as he goes along, he rattles a tin can and says, "Feed the kitty, feed the kitty."
Has he caught you yet, Connie?
Has he? I've fed the kitty so often, I feel like a tall mouse. Take last Tuesday, for instance. I happened to run into Mr. Boynton in the hall. Well, I just didn't happen to run into him. I sort of aimed myself at him. But just as my favorite biologist and I greeted each other, the bell rang for the next period, and Mr. Conklin came by and fined me a dime for not being in my classroom.
That is strict.
That's nothing. Wednesday, I hit a parlay. I had to donate 15 cents because I went up a stairway marked down, 20 cents for loitering near a fire exit. You can call having your foot caught in the door loitering.
Connie, do you have to submit to all these fines? I mean, has Mr. Conklin the right to do all this?
We voted on it in assembly. Of course, it was really more like a plebiscite. You know, vote yes any way you want to. It isn't the money I miss so much. It's the lunches I could have bought with it.
Imagine it. Not having enough money for lunch.
I don't have to imagine it. Those fines add up, you know.
You poor dear. It has been an expensive week for you, hasn't it?
Yes, and that's what worries me so much today. I haven't got a dime in my purse. He can get me on a vagrancy rap. Oh, well, maybe it's for the best. The less I have on me, the less I can donate to the bust. For the bust. Well, I had a good breakfast anyway. I'd better get ready to leave now. Walter Denton's picking me up any minute.
But where's your car, Connie?
At the tailor's, Mrs. Davis.
The tailor's? Don't you mean the garage, Connie?
No, I'm having it pressed. The last time I drove it in traffic, I got it all wrinkled. I'm glad you called for me promptly today, Walter. The Conklin Code provides a stiff fine for tardiness.
Believe me, Miss Brooks, my punctuality was not inspired by purely altruistic motives. By that, I mean I, too, have been harpooned by our beloved principal.
I'm glad you explained it.
Miss Brooks, I don't like the way things are going at Madison High. We've got to take some steps.
What? And get fined for stealing school property?
No, I'm serious. This Conklin Code is nothing but medieval tyranny. Why, yesterday he fined me 15 cents for whistling outside of his office. A downright injustice.
Why? Weren't you whistling?
Well, sure I was whistling, but I didn't know he was in his office. I was just trying to get Harriet's attention. She was down at the end of the hall. Besides, I think the fine was exorbitant. All I gave was a 2-finger job.
A 2-finger job? You mean where you put 2 fingers in your mouth and then blast?
Yeah, that's the one. 15 cents he soaked me.
I've heard that whistle, Walter, and in all honesty, I must confess that I consider 7.5 cents a finger very reasonable.
But the entire code is founded on injustice. Miss Brooks, I've talked it over with the other kids at school, and we've appointed you our leader.
Me?
You are the logical member of the faculty to cross swords with Mr. Conklin.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Walter. I've crossed swords with Mr. Conklin often enough to know that all you can get out of it is a bent sword.
But you can't avoid this responsibility, Miss Brooks. We've got to fight fire with fire. You are the knight we have chosen to slay the dragon.
I'm sorry, Walter, but my card in the Dragon Slayers Union expired. Besides, the bust is supposed to be finished by tomorrow.
But how do we know there's enough in the kitty to pay for it? Oh, here's the school. Did I stop too suddenly for you?
Not at all. I always like to kiss the windshield goodbye.
Out, I'd like to ask another favor, Miss Brooks. Would you please hold this 40 cents for me?
40 cents?
Yeah, it's my lunch money, and I don't want to have it on me in case Mr. Conklin finds me for breaking some rule he makes up right after I've broken it. Just put it in your purse for me, will you?
All right, Walter. Added to what I've got in there now, it totals 1 broken watch crystal and 40 cents.
I'll find a place to park. You go on in, Miss Brooks.
All right, Walter. Thanks for the lift. Maybe I'd better tiptoe past Mr. Conklin's office.
Squeaky shoes, 20 cents.
Oh, but...
Come on, Miss Brooks. Feed the kitty, feed the kitty.
Please, Mr. Conklin, we've got to talk this thing over.
Very well. Would you like to step into my office?
Thank you.
No. Now, wouldn't you like to sit down?
Yes, I would.
I thought you would. That'll be 10 cents for not going straight to your first class. Now, come on, Miss Brooks. Feed the kitty, feed the kitty.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Mr. Conklin. Many of the students are getting a little tired of your carelessness code.
Oh? Is this insubordination?
About a nickel's worth, yes.
I'm surprised at you, Miss Brooks. Don't you realize where this money is going?
Yes, Mr. Conklin. It's going into a statue.
Not just a statue, Miss Brooks. Rather, the statue, which will serve as an inspiration to unborn generations of Madison High's students.
Then why not let them pay for it? I mean, just where are you going to put this statue, Mr. Conklin?
Why, in the school library, of course, on that lovely mahogany pedestal that overlooks the entrance.
You mean next to the bust of Julius Caesar?
Instead of it, Miss Brooks.
That's a pretty big job, summer replacement for Julius Caesar. Where are you going to put the other statue?
Before the Board of Education takes their next inventory, Caesar may meet with an accident.
It's possible. He met with one before.
I meant the statue, Miss Brooks. Who knows? Inadvertently, it might be severely damaged.
Why, Mr. Conklin, you're not thinking
Not out loud, I'm not. No. Oh, before I forget, Miss Brooks, I want you to straighten out the records in the library at once. Walter Denton's been acting as school librarian for the past few weeks, and needless to say, he's made a mess of everything.
But, Mr. Conklin, my regular school duties are quite enough.
This won't interfere with your school duties, Miss Brooks. I hereby grant you permission to attend to this matter after school hours.
Why, Mr. Conklin, how charming of you. But about this carelessness code...
Oh, thanks for reminding me. You owe me 30 cents. Feed the kitty.
But I haven't got any money, Mr. Conklin.
Please, Miss Brooks. I distinctly heard your purse rattle when you sat down.
Oh, well, I might as well add embezzling to my other crimes. Here you are, Mr. Conklin.
But, Miss Brooks, I only asked for 30 cents. You put 40 in the kitty.
Hang on to it, Mr. Conklin. I'll try my best to earn another fine before the day is out.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment. But first, here is Vern Smith. Here's wonderful news, ladies. Wonderful, wonderful news. Now there's something thrillingly new in Palmolive Soap's famous Beauty Lather. Yes, something thrillingly new. Palmolive's famous Beauty Lather now brings you new fragrance, new charm, new allure.
Millions of women will prefer Beauty Lather Palmolive over all other leading toilet soaps the minute they try it. For Palmolive Soap's famous Beauty Lather now has a new, clean, flower-fresh fragrance for new allure, new charm.
So, ladies, forget all other beauty care and use Palmolive Soap the way doctors advised for a lovelier complexion. Just stop improper cleansing and instead wash your face with Palmolive Soap 3 times a day, massaging Palmolive's wonderful Beauty Lather onto your skin for 60 seconds each time to get its full beautifying effect. Then rinse. That's all. All types of skin, young, older, oily, respond to it quickly. Don't wait another day to try Palmolive's Beauty Lather. You'll be thrilled by its new fragrance, new charm, new allure. Thrilled again by the fresher, brighter complexion doctors prove may soon be yours.
For new loveliness all over, use big bath-size Palmolive in tub or shower.
It has always been my experience that nothing stimulates the appetite quite as much as an empty pocketbook. It was with this poignant thought in mind that I approached the cafeteria at lunchtime. As I strolled slowly down the long line of tempting morsels on the steam table, Harriet Conklin, who was helping out behind the counter, came over to me.
Can I serve you something, Miss Brooks?
No, thank you. Just smelling.
I'm about finished serving. Now I'm going to have my lunch. I've got it all ready on this tray here. Care to join me?
All right, Harriet. I'll have some water and a napkin.
Here we are. Gosh, this roast beef looks yummy.
It certainly is.
Did you have it with the barbecue sauce on it today?
No, I smelled it plain today. See, I'm on sort of a diet, Harriet.
I don't know why you have to diet. Golly, I wish I had your figure.
So do I. You could feed it better. How is the beef with that barbecue sauce on it?
Delicious. Would you like a taste, Miss Brooks?
Well...
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're on a diet, I better not tempt you.
Tempt me.
No. I don't know. I know how difficult it is sometimes to stay on a diet.
Put some of that meat on this fork or I'll spear it from here. There. That is good.
Of course, to me, roast beef is good with or without barbecue sauce.
Oh, to me, too.
Really?
I am one schoolteacher who offers proof positive. Pass some over without the sauce.
Here you are, Miss Brooks.
Say, that is good meat.
I'm certainly glad our cafeteria is staying open during summer school. Not many of them do, you know.
I know. Funny thing about tasting roast beef plain, you forget how it tasted with the barbecue sauce on it.
Why, Miss Brooks, you don't really want another... All right, here you are. Golly, Miss Brooks, one would think you hadn't had any lunch all week.
One would be on the right track. I don't like to mention this while you're eating, Harriet, but it's all because of your father. His carelessness code has kept me broke.
I'm against it, too, Miss Brooks. Daddy even finds me every chance he gets.
Well, there isn't anything we can do about it, I guess. You know, there's something about that barbecue sauce that escapes me. I think I'll just try... Why, Harriet.
What's the matter, Miss Brooks?
You've gone south with our roast beef.
I'm sorry I ate it all so rapidly. I was starved. Say, isn't that Mr. Boynton over by the steam table?
Yes, it is. When it comes to food, the bashful biologist isn't very bashful.
He's getting himself a tray full, all right. And he's coming this way, Miss Brooks.
Well, don't just sit there, girl. Make room for those groceries.
Hello, Miss
Brooks, Harriet.
Hello, Mr. Boynton. Would you like to join us?
Well, if there's room enough,
Oh, there's plenty of room. Harriet was just leaving.
But
Go get some milk, dear. It'll make you strong. Then you can wolf down some more roast beef tomorrow.
I guess I would like some milk at that. See you later, Mr. Boynton. Bye, Miss Brooks.
And so a new partnership starts. I see we have lamb chops today.
Yes, there are certain vitamins found in lamb that enhance almost any type of balanced diet.
So I've heard. But before you eat them, Mr. Boynton, I wonder if you'd mind cutting off what you want and leaving the bones. I saw a puppy on the way to school this morning who looked very hungry.
Sorry, Miss Brooks, but there's sort of a priority on these bones. My frog McDougal likes to nibble on them.
McDougal?
Yes. Extraordinary, isn't it? He's the only frog I know of who can nibble on a lamb chop bone.
That's not so extraordinary. I know a girl who could nibble on a frog right now. If you'll bring Mac into the cafeteria, I'll show you the girl.
Oh, there you go, kidding me again. What a sense of humor.
Oh, yes. Hunger is a scream. Maybe I'd better drop one more subtle hint. Mr. Boynton.
Yes?
I'm starving, Mr. Boynton. Yes.
Why don't you eat something? I'm against all these diets women inflict upon themselves. Suppose you're a little plump.
He may never get to that second lamb chop. Mr. Boynton, I'm talking about today, now, lunch. I haven't eaten any because I don't have the money to buy any.
You don't?
No.
Where is all your money?
I'm land poor.
Land poor?
If the Conklin Carelessness Code continues, I'll land in the poorhouse. Look, Mr. Boynton, I never borrow money if I can help it.
I know you don't, Miss Brooks, and I think that's one of your most admirable traits. Well, many's the time I've been tempted to offer you some financial assistance, but well, I've always said to myself, don't you dare, Boynton. Miss Brooks is proud. Proud and resourceful. And she'll come through. Somehow.
That's what you said to yourself, huh?
Yes, indeed.
You've got to be more careful who you talk to. Mr. Boynton, it's getting pretty close to the end of the lunch period. I'd like just a small bite, so that's all I'll put on you. I mean, could you lend me 25 cents?
25 cents? Why, of course, Miss Brooks. Here you are.
Thanks. I'll pay you back just as soon as
Oh, don't worry about paying me back. Gosh. Any time tonight will do.
Tonight? Have we got a date for tonight?
Well, didn't I tell you? I've got tickets for the band concert on the mall. I thought we'd spend the afternoon in the park and then have some dinner and dance and take in the concert. How does that sound to you?
All this and 2 bits, too? Oh, it sounds wonderful, Mr. Boynton. I'll just get a sandwich or something and come right back to the table.
All right, Miss Brooks.
I'd better hurry. It's almost the end of the lunch period.
So it is, Miss Brooks.
Mr. Conklin.
And if memory serves, you were supposed to be straightening out the library records after lunch. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Conklin, but I've got an important engagement I'd like to keep this afternoon.
It isn't always what we'd like to do that matters, Miss Brooks. You volunteered to work in the library, and that's where you'll have to spend the afternoon.
But, Mr. Conklin...
Unfortunately, while you were standing here chattering, you've incurred another fine for tardiness.
Tardiness?
That'll be 25 cents, Miss Brooks. Feed the kitty, feed the kitty.
I'm afraid I didn't keep these library cards very neatly, Miss Brooks. They're pretty thoroughly scrambled.
If I had some ketchup, I'd have them for lunch. Let's see here. These cards really are scrambled. What does this cryptic entry mean? The Three Musketeers, Alexandre Dumas or Mike Shaughnessy?
Oh, The Three Musketeers is the title of a book.
Yes, I know, Walter, but underneath the title, why did you write Alexandre Dumas or Mike Shaughnessy?
Well, frankly, Miss Brooks, I was a little confused. You see, I couldn't remember whether Alexandre Dumas wrote the book and Shaughnessy took it out, or if Shaughnessy wrote it and
Believe me, Walter, If Dumas took it out, this library isn't for me. Now, you better let me straighten these cards out myself. You find something else to do.
Okay, Miss Brooks. I'll grab a rag and dust off old Marblehead.
Old Marblehead?
Yeah, that's what we call the statue of Caesar, because his head's made out of marble. Of course, even though Mr. Conklin's head isn't made out of marble, we also call him...
Yes, I know. You needn't bother dusting off this old Marblehead. Somebody else in school is planning to dust it off permanently. In fact, Caesar may meet with an accident almost any time now.
I beg your pardon, Miss Brooks.
Well, what do you know? The Ides of March.
These floors are quite slippery. A person could very easily lose his balance and be... Well.
Oh, gosh. You accidentally knocked over old Conklin, Mr. Marblehead.
Quiet, Denton. What a shocking misfortune. Why, I love this statue of Caesar, with his delicately chiseled features, his fine Roman nose.
You'd better learn to love him without his nose. It just rolled under the desk. Here, Walter, help me lift Caesar back on the pedestal.
No, please. It was my clumsiness that knocked it off. I'll lift it back on myself. Well, steady does it. Good firm grip now.
Walter.
Yes, Miss Brooks?
Set Caesar up in the next alley. Mr. Conklin's got another shot coming.
I dropped in to inform you, Miss Brooks, that thanks to your last contribution, my statue has been paid for in full. It will be delivered tomorrow morning and unveiled at noon. I shall want it kept under cover and... Denton, what are you stuffing into that canvas bag?
The things that are Caesar's, Mr. Conklin. His ears and nose, and also the rest of him. I figured I could take it over to the shop and patch it up a little and...
Just leave it where it is, Denton. You see, Miss Brooks, we have only the one pedestal.
Haven't we just?
And since Julius has been so brutally damaged...
Oh, he won't be damaged anymore, Mr. Conklin. I'll see to that. This statue is school property, and if anyone tries to injure it in any way, I'll report him to the student council and the Board of Education.
Zealous little beagle, isn't he? Denton, you are dismissed as of right now.
But, Mr. Conklin, shouldn't I...
Go, boy!
Goodbye, Miss Brooks.
Goodbye, boy.
Now then, Miss Brooks, if you'll excuse me, I'll return in just a little while and personally take care of fixing that statue.
Yes, I know you will, Mr. Conklin, but good.
Pardon me, Miss Brooks, but where shall I put this statue?
Statue? Oh, just put it on the desk here for now.
There.
Well, if it isn't old Marblehead II.
Yeah, it's pretty good likeness of Mr. Conklin, isn't it?
If you like Mr. Conklin's likeness, yes. But this wasn't supposed to be delivered until tomorrow.
I know, but the custodian just told me that they wanted to surprise Mr. Conklin. Is there any place we could hide it temporarily?
Hide it? Why, yes, there is a place we could hide it, Mr. Boynton. Right in this canvas bag. First, you'll have to take out this busted bust.
All right. There. That's Julius Caesar. Say, his nose is off and his ear.
Please, Mr. Boynton, there's no time to cut up touches with Julius. Now, slip Mr. Conklin's statue into the bag.
All right. There he goes. Now, what do we do with Caesar?
We'll take him over to the shop and fix him up the best we can. He's just got to occupy that pedestal, Mr. Boynton.
Pedestal? But I don't understand, Miss Brooks.
Well, I'll explain it to you on the way over. You see, Mr. Conklin assigned me to work in this library, and if I'm going to look at a statue all day, I'd like to make very certain that it's the kind of a statue
Oh, Miss Brooks? Miss Brooks? Must have stepped out for a moment. So much the better. Ah, yes, here's the canvas bag with old Marblehead still in it. Now, we'll just take this little hammer and commence. Friends, Romans, countrymen, I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Mr. Conklin, what are you doing?
It should be obvious even to you, Miss Brooks.
Yes. Well, Mr. Conklin, there's something I feel I should tell you.
Very well, Miss Brooks, but while you're telling me, I'll continue with the business at hand.
It's like this, Mr. Conklin. I would normally be very loath to interrupt what's obviously such a joyful hobby to you. I feel that what I have to tell you merits your immediate attention.
Well, what is it, Miss Brooks?
If it were something trivial, like being disgruntled over having to work in the library instead of going on a date with Mr. Boynton, who is now in the park by himself, I might hesitate to bother you.
What are you driving at, Miss Brooks?
Well, the main point I'd like to get across to you, Mr. Conklin, is that I have absolutely no hard feelings toward you, and I trust you have none toward me.
None whatsoever?
Good. Now, open the bag.
Open the bag?
Yes, Mr. Conklin. I'm afraid you'll find that you've pulverized the wrong statue. You see, your statue arrived earlier, and we wanted to surprise you, so we put it in that bag.
What? I'm in here?
And Caesar is over at the shop getting his nose put back on.
But, Miss Brooks, you just stood there. All the time I was hammering you. How? Why didn't you should have done...
Please, Mr. Conklin, remember your blood pressure.
But what'll I do? What'll I do when the Board of Education comes to take inventory? What'll I put on that pedestal?
Calm down, Mr. Conklin. I just found out that it'll only cost $15 to repair the bust of Caesar.
$15?
Yes, and I thought of a delightful way to collect the money.
Really? How, Miss Brooks?
Feed the kitty, Mr. Conklin. Feed the kitty.
Our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first, tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives you Kay Daumit's exclusive blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid, Luster Cream leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed. And Luster Cream leaves no soapy film, does not dry hair. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, for soft, glamorous, caressable hair, try Luster Cream shampoo at all drug and cosmetic counters.
Dream girl, beautiful Luster Cream girl, you owe your crowning glory to a Luster Cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
Well, I finally escaped from the library and hastened to meet Mr. Boynton in the park. Having had no lunch except a few swatches from Harriet's roast beef, I was ravenous.
Hello, Miss Brooks. Beautiful day, isn't it?
Yes, it is. How about a hot dog or a hamburger?
Oh, no, thanks. I'm full.
Oh?
Look at that little boy. He just threw a peanut to that pigeon.
So he did. Excuse me, Mr. Boynton.
Miss Brooks, you're not going to pick up that peanut.
Certainly not, Mr. Boynton. That wouldn't be fair to the pigeon. I'm going to race him for it.
Next week, tune into another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Palmolive Soap, your beauty hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair. Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, written and directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch. Here's a money-saving offer, men. A giant tube and large tube of Palmolive brushless shaving cream for 49 cents. Yes, a 70-cent value for only 49 cents. This offer is made solely to prove you, too, can get smoother, more comfortable shaves the Palmolive brushless way. Just follow directions on the tube and treat your face to wonderful shaves. Yes, for extra shaving comfort at extra low cost, don't miss this Palmolive brushless bargain. At drug and toilet goods counters, get both giant and large size Palmolive brushless. A 70-cent value for only 49 cents. For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. North Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at this same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Bob Lamont speaking. This is CBS, where 99 million people gather every week, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Palmolive Soap, your beauty hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden.
To most school teachers, early rising becomes a habit. But not to our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High Summer School.
No, I've always been cautious about anything that's habit-forming, especially getting up before 7 a.m. That's why Mrs. Davis, my landlady, had a particularly tough time waking me last Friday morning.
Connie, get up, Connie. It's 6:30. Come on now, get up. Now, Connie, you can't be that sound asleep. You've got one eye open.
That's just to see if the other one's tightly shut.
Oh, see you later, Mrs. Davis.
You'll see me right now. Come on, Connie. You'll feel better after a nice breakfast. Now hurry and get dressed. I've got a surprise for you.
Not one of your brand new recipes, Mrs. Davis.
Not exactly, Connie. I'm doing something to the eggs that's never been done before.
Is it legal?
I'm grilling them, Connie.
Good for you, Mrs. Davis. And if they don't come clean, throw them in solitary.
Well, how do you like the eggs that way, Connie?
They're surprisingly edible, Mrs. Davis.
You were telling me about your date last night. What happened after Mr. Boynton took you to the park?
Well, first we took a nice, long, bashful walk around the zoo. Then we sat down on Mr. Boynton's favorite bench. You'd be surprised how cooling and refreshing it was just to sit there.
Refreshing?
Yes, it's right outside the polar bear's cage. Oh, it was a beautiful night. Mr. Boynton looked up at the full moon. Then he sighed, his lips parted.
And then?
He sneezed.
And was that all, Connie?
Certainly not, Mrs. Davis. I looked right into his eyes and softly murmured, Gesundheit. Then he took me home.
Why, I'm surprised at you, Connie, missing a big opportunity like that.
What do you mean, Mrs. Davis?
You said Mr. Boynton sneezed.
Yes?
A man's sneeze is very important, Connie. It isn't something that you can dismiss lightly.
What should I have done? Painted a picture of it?
Men are like children, Connie. They like people to make a fuss over them when they don't feel well. As soon as Mr. Boynton sneezed, you should have treated him for a bad cold.
Treated him? But how?
You should have at least have made him a cup of hot tea.
I would have, but the polar bears were using the kettle. You forget, Mrs. Davis, we were in the park.
Then you should have left the park. Don't you see, Connie? Every man likes to know that his well-being is a matter of vital importance to his woman.
But, Mrs. Davis, I am not, if you'll excuse the expression, and I certainly will, his woman.
Well, you never will be unless you take advantage of his natural male weaknesses. Remember now, Connie, the next time Mr. Boynton shows the slightest sign of ill health, you've got to be a real Florence Nightingale.
Florence Nightingale? But I haven't got the voice for it. I mean... I appreciate your interest, Mrs. Davis, but if I have to wait until Mr. Boynton gets sick before he romances me, I'll be too old to enjoy it. He's as healthy as an ox.
So much the better. It's those great, big, healthy ones who appreciate you most when something does go wrong.
Oh, that must be Walter Denton. He's given me a lift to school this morning. Come in, Walter. I left the latch off for him.
Hi, Miss Brooks. Hi, Mrs. Davis.
Would you like something to eat, Walter? Or have you had breakfast?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, thanks. What?
He's had breakfast, and he'd like something to eat.
I've got something in the kitchen that you'll just love, Walter. One of my latest recipes.
On second thought, I'm not very hungry right now.
You don't have to be hungry to eat these. A friend of mine sent me the recipe all the way from Florida. They're called Pensacola Popovers.
Oh, gee, I don't know, Mrs. Davis.
I'll warm them up a bit and bring in enough for all of us. Coffee is right on the table, Connie.
All right, Mrs. Davis. She certainly gets some weird dishes together sometimes.
Yeah, but you can't really blame her. Everybody's got some kind of a hobby. George Washington liked to go hunting. Benjamin Franklin played with a kite. Thomas Edison read short stories.
Then there was Lucretia Borgia.
You know, in a way, I can't help feeling grateful to Mrs. Davis. It was one of her cookies that brought true love into my life.
And how long have you been in love with this cookie, Walter?
I'm talking about Harriet Conklin, Miss Brooks. It all started when we first began going together. We dropped by to see you after school one day, and you weren't in. And that's when Mrs. Davis gave me the cookie. 20 minutes later, I was sick as a dog.
Must have been one of her quick-acting cookies.
That's when Harriet first nursed me back to health. Gee, prior to that day, I never enjoyed being sick in my life.
You enjoyed it?
Definitely. In fact, ever since then, I'm sick 4 or 5 times a month. Of course, it doesn't always work out. Take yesterday, for instance. I had a date with Harriet for the evening, and all day long I felt great, because when I woke up in the morning, I was feeling rotten. But by the time I ate dinner, I felt fine again. Boy, was I disappointed.
What you're driving at, by way of the Malayan Peninsula, is that it's nice to have someone you like take care of you. Hmm?
Oh, it's more than nice, Miss Brooks. It's blissful. Why, when Harriet puts her little white hand on my fevered brow, she reminds me of...
Florence Nightingale?
No, Mercedes McMillan. She was a trained nurse who took care of my mother once when I was a little boy.
Oh.
Who's this Florence Nightingale?
She was in the same racket. She was a famous nurse, too. Look, Walter, I'd like to ask you something.
Oh, sure, Miss Brooks. What is it?
Do you think a man like Mr. Boynton would enjoy being nursed back to health if he became ill?
Oh, sure he would. But there isn't much chance of his becoming ill. He's got nerves of steel, and his stomach is made of iron.
Must be pretty rough on his shirts. But you know, I've been thinking,
Here
Walter...
we are, folks. Pensacola Popovers, hot off the griddle.
But those are the same kind of cookies I ate that other time when I... No, thanks, Mrs. Davis. I'll just have some milk, thanks.
What are they made of, Mrs. Davis?
There's nothing extraordinary about the batter, Connie. I just take a plain whole wheat waffle mix, add some sour cream, yeast, a few raisins, and some cucumber rind, then beat it until the caraway seeds are dissolved.
That's the least you can do for them. Mrs. Davis, would you put some of those in a couple of bags for me? I'd like to take them to school.
To school, Connie?
Yes. Mr. Boynton may have an iron stomach, but I think these cookies might rust it a little. Good morning, Mr. Boynton. May I come in?
Of course, Miss Brooks. Here, let me help you with those packages.
Oh, just set them on this table here.
Ah, what brings you to school so early this morning?
The usual thing, Walter Denton. Actually, I had to stop at the grocer's. I brought a few things along for you, too. Thought you might want a bite before we have lunch.
Oh, I can't have lunch with you today. I've been invited to the biology club banquet. It's a stag, I'm afraid.
Well, don't be afraid. It might be fun. Have a banana, Mr. Boynton?
Banana? I don't mind if I do. I haven't had anything to eat since breakfast.
And it's almost 8 o'clock already. You must be starved. Here, I brought some milk along, too.
Well, thanks, Miss Brooks.
It's only a pint bottle, but if you're still thirsty, there's some buttermilk right next to it.
Buttermilk?
Yes, but I don't advise you to drink it right after the sweet milk.
No?
No, eat this chocolate eclair first.
I guess you've heard about my appetite. Honestly, my constitution is so rugged I can eat nails.
They're in that little bag over there. That is, why don't you try some of these nice green plums?
Don't mind if I do.
Mr. Boynton?
Yes, Miss Brooks?
How do you feel?
Fine.
No spots in front of your eyes or anything?
Certainly not. I've never been sick a day in my life.
I know, but everybody gets a little dizzy or something once in a while. Aren't you a little dizzy?
What is all this, Miss Brooks? Why this sudden solicitude concerning my health?
Oh, it's nothing really. Must be my nursing background. I studied to be a trained nurse, you know.
No, I didn't know that. What made you take up teaching instead?
Just money mad, I guess. I kept hearing about school teachers winning the Irish sweepstakes. Well, I'd better be getting into my classroom now. Goodbye, Mr. Boynton.
Bye, Miss Brooks.
Still no spots or anything?
Of course not. I feel great.
Guess I'd better whip out the popovers. Oh, I almost forgot, Mr. Boynton. Here's another surprise for you. Some homemade Pensacola popovers.
Oh, but Miss Brooks, a whole bag full.
You don't get the flavor until you've eaten several of them.
Well, it certainly was nice of you to bring me this snack. This cheeseburger is out of this world.
Well, be sure and give me a ring before you join it.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment. But first, here is Vern Smith.
For bare skin beauty, it's bath-size Palmolive with its famous beauty lather. Yes, bath-size Palmolive for loveliness all over.
There's something thrillingly new in this wonderful beauty lather of bath-size Palmolive soap. New fragrance, new charm, new allure. See if Palmolive in your daily tub or shower doesn't leave your shoulders, arms, and back, yes, all of you, softer and smoother, completely lovelier all over. You'll thrill to the tender whisper of perfume it leaves on your skin, a whisper that says, "Come hither to romance."
And this new bath-size Palmolive is so big, so thrifty, economical to use because it lasts so long and gives so much soft, lovely lather so fast.
That soft, lovely lather with its alluring new fragrance is Palmolive soaps alone. Palmolive's famous beauty lather. Yes, a new fragrance, new charm, new allure that can make every woman a vision of delight in the new revealing fashions that show so much more of you.
So remember, for bare skin beauty, it's bath-size Palmolive with its famous beauty lather. Yes, bath-size Palmolive for loveliness all over.
Get bath-size Palmolive soap tomorrow. Menfolk love it, too.
During my morning classes, I gave my students brief study periods and left the room 3 times for the following reasons. At 9:15, I stepped out for a hot dog and a bag of caramels, which I promptly delivered to Mr. Boynton. At 10:45, he gracefully accepted 2 cream puffs and a Loganberry popsicle. At 11:30, I brought him a taffy apple on a stick, some French pastry, and a pineapple malted. Shortly before 12 noon, I entered the biology laboratory to claim the body.
Oh, hi, Miss Brooks. Say, do you have any more of those cookies?
I just happened to have another bag of them with me. I brought them along in case you were still standing. Hungry. Here, take one.
I'll take 2 if you don't mind. You know how those banquets are. Probably won't serve for hours yet. You know, it's funny how people acquire different eating habits. Some people like to eat 3 square meals a day. Me, I like to pick. Of course, so far today, I guess you'd say I did more than pick.
I'd say you picked and shoveled.
Well, the trouble with most people is their eyes are bigger than their stomachs. Why, any insurance company will tell you how dangerous it is to become overweight. And it's almost impossible to avoid getting too heavy if you don't cut down on your food intake as you get older. What's in that other bag?
It's a turkey sandwich, Mr. Boynton. Here, take it.
Oh, now, just a minute. Accepting a few little snacks is one thing, but this looks like a pretty expensive sandwich. How much was it, Miss Brooks?
Oh, forget it, Mr. Boynton.
No, I won't. How much did this turkey sandwich cost you?
I got it for nothing.
Where?
A rich uncle died and left it to me. Now, take it, Mr. Boynton. It's yours.
No, Miss Brooks, not until you tell me how much it cost.
All right. It cost 45 cents.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. But
I'd like to see you. Oh, I didn't know you were here, Miss Brooks.
Hello, Mr. Conklin.
How are you, sir?
I was just saying goodbye to Mr. Boynton. He's going to a banquet in a little while.
Oh. What are all these paper bags doing here?
He's been rehearsing.
Would you like a piece of this turkey sandwich, Mr. Conklin?
No, thank you. I've had my lunch.
Well, how about one of these cookies? They're very good.
Oh, thanks, Boynton. I'll take it with me.
You can't take it with you. I mean, take a couple of them, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, thanks. The reason I dropped in, Boynton, was to caution you about locking all your cages before leaving school. I wouldn't want any of our students to be bitten by one of your experimental animals.
Oh, you don't have to worry about that, Mr. Conklin. My animals are all harmless. Well, even if they did nip someone, there'd be no trouble securing first aid. Not with Miss Brooks around.
Miss Brooks?
Well, yes, she studied to be a trained nurse, before she took up teaching.
Really? Then the nursing profession's loss is Madison High School's loss.
If you ever get a splinter in your finger, Mr. Conklin, be sure to call me. I'll be glad to hack it out. But before you go, Mr. Conklin, why don't you help yourself to another one of these cookies?
Oh, very well, Miss Brooks. Be sure and lock those cages, Boynton.
Oh, yes, sir. Goodbye, Mr. Conklin.
What's that, Mr. Boynton? Oh, it's McDougal.
Yes, he's eating one of those cookies. I gave it to him a little while ago. Oh, look at him, Miss Brooks. Look how methodically he's eating. That shows how intelligent he is. It's smart to eat slowly,
It's smart to eat those cookies slowly. Look, he just finished it.
Did you enjoy it, Mac? Oh, look at him. He's trying to stand on his head. Hey, he's hopping all over the cage. Do you think he's looking for another cookie?
I think he's looking for a nice pool of Alka-Seltzer.
You never know what Mac's going to do sometimes. He's pretty peculiar. Well, I guess I'll take him to my apartment now and get over to that banquet.
Your apartment?
Well, yes. I don't like to leave Mac alone overnight in the lab here. He gets rather lonesome. As a matter of fact, we're good company for each other. Mac and I have some pretty gay times in our little bachelor apartment.
I'll bet the joint really jumps.
Well, we'll have to be running along now, Miss Brooks. Thanks for everything.
Oh, that's all right, Mr. Boynton. Don't forget the rest of the popovers.
Oh, thanks a lot, Miss Brooks. I'm sorry I can't take you with me, but I'll give you a call tonight. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Boynton. Well, here I am, queen of the lab again, in the center of every beady eye. 14 guinea pigs and 12 white mice. Any of you fellas want to go to lunch? Come in.
Oh, Miss Brooks, thank goodness I found you.
Hello, Harriet. What's all the excitement?
It's Daddy. He wants to see you in his office immediately.
Mr. Conklin? But I saw him just a few...
Oh, I'm worried about him, Miss Brooks. Terribly worried. He just had to double up on his couch.
That's nothing to worry about. Things are crowded all over.
This is serious, Miss Brooks. Daddy told me you've had training as a nurse. Oh, please come into his office right away.
All right, Harriet, but I'd give 2 weeks' salary if Mercedes McMillan were here.
Mercedes McMillan?
She was the Florence Nightingale of Walter Denton's mother.
Gee, I'm glad you got here, Miss Brooks.
How's Mr. Conklin feeling, Walter?
Oh, I don't have to...
Does that answer your question? Here's Miss Brooks, Mr. Conklin.
Tell me, Miss Brooks, just what was in that cookie I ate.
If I told you, you'd feel worse.
I'd better get out of here. At a time like this, a man should be surrounded by the people who care for him most.
But I'm here, Mr. Conklin.
So am I, Mr. Conklin.
That's what I say. I'm going home.
Here, Daddy, here's a nice glass of water.
No, not now, Harriet. I'm going home to your mother. She'll know what to do for me. Miss Brooks, please lock up the office before you leave.
Yes, sir.
Don't you worry about a thing, Mr. Conklin. We'll take care of everything.
Yeah.
Gee, I hope there's nothing seriously wrong with Daddy.
Oh, I'm sure there isn't, Harriet. It's just... I'll get it. Hello? Principal's office. Gives me a feeling of power. Miss Brooks speaking.
Oh, hello, Miss Brooks. This is Mr. Boynton. Could you get over to my place right away?
Your place?
Yes, I wouldn't ask this of you if it weren't a question of illness.
Illness? I'll be right over.
Who was that?
It was Mr. Boynton. He sounded very upset.
Now's your chance, Miss Brooks. It's up to you to nurse him back to health.
Walter, what are you talking about?
Well, don't you see? Miss Brooks can take care of Mr. Boynton just like you take care of me when I'm sick. Now, the first thing you got to do, Miss Brooks, is stop at a hospital supply store for a thermometer, a first aid kit.
Oh, but Walter,
please don't interrupt, Miss Brooks. You've got to do this thing right. If I were you, I'd even get a complete nurse's outfit. Don't you think so, Harriet?
Absolutely, Miss Brooks. He'll just eat it up.
Why should that be an exception?
There you are, Mac. Just rest on this pillow a while. It's all right. You'll feel better when Miss Brooks gets here. I hate to leave you while you're feeling like this, but I've got to go to that luncheon. Come right in, Miss Brooks.
Oh, thank heaven I'm not too late.
It is quite serious, I'm afraid, but... Miss Brooks, you've got on a nurse's uniform.
No talking, Mr. Boynton. You mustn't exert yourself. Now take this thermometer. Just breathe normally.
Thermometer? But, no, just a minute, Miss Brooks.
Keep it in your mouth, please.
Well, what do I want with a thermometer?
Your pulse is very rapid. Ought to be checked regularly for long periods. Why, I might have to sit here holding your hand like this for months. Or at least until your pulse is back to normal. Of course, by that time, mine will be completely out of control.
You haven't given me a chance to explain, Miss Brooks. I'm not the patient.
You're not the patient, Mr. Boynton?
No, Miss Brooks. In fact, I've got to hurry right over to that luncheon. I'm late now.
But, Mr. Boynton, I've got quite an investment in this little occasion. That is, if you're not the patient, who is?
It's McDougal.
McDougal? You can say that again, Mac. In fact, we can both say it.
It's just something he ate, Miss Brooks, but I feel much better now that you're here to sit with him.
Me? Look, Mr. Boynton, my folks didn't raise me to be a frog sitter. And if you think
gosh, look at the time. I've really got to run.
Mr. Boynton,
I'll only be a few hours, Miss Brooks. Goodbye, and thanks a lot.
Oh, great. Well, I've got the nurse's uniform on. This is as good a time as any to cut my throat. Don't get up, Mac. I'll answer it. Oh, hello, Harriet. Come in.
Hello, Miss Brooks. Walter's parking the car. He'll be along in a minute. That nurse's outfit looks simply super. How's the patient?
The patient? Oh, he's resting comfortably.
Fine.
Under a hunk of lettuce.
A hunk of lettuce?
Come with me, Harriet. He's sitting on a pillow by the window.
But, Miss Brooks, I don't see Mr. Boynton.
Without telescopic vision, I didn't expect you to. He's still at the luncheon.
Then who are you nursing?
At the sound of the gulp, it will be exactly my patient.
McDougal?
Who else? When Mac fell victim to the popover plague, Mr. Boynton drafted me to sit with him.
But how can you sit with a frog?
I use an underslung stool. Stool, I said. Oh, excuse me, Harriet. Oh, it's you, Walter.
How's everything working out, Miss Brooks? Are you making a big fuss over him?
Big enough. I've rearranged his pillow for him 3 times.
Swell. And tell me, Miss Brooks, when you bent down to fix his pillow, did he put his arms around you?
He certainly did, all 4 of them.
What?
Just follow me, Walter. Harriet's over there by the window.
Good. I've got a date to get sick with her later on. Hiya, Harriet.
Hello, Walter. Isn't it terrible? Mr. Boynton isn't sick at all. It's McDougal.
McDougal?
Yes, he's fallen asleep now, and I'd appreciate it if you don't wake him up. I've had my hands full with him for an hour. Why, he's hot. You make the explanations, Harriet. I'll answer the door.
Hello, Miss Brooks.
Mr. Conklin, come in. How do you feel?
I forgot about my own indisposition as soon as I heard of Mr. Boynton's illness. When I think of how hard it is to get a good summer school teacher, my heart goes out to the poor fellow.
How typical of you, Mr. Conklin.
May I, for just a moment, go in and pay my respects to the patient?
Well, right now, he's unconscious.
Unconscious, Miss Brooks?
Yes, but I'm sure he'll be croaking any minute.
Croaking?
Just follow me, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, hello, Mr. Conklin.
Daddy, did Miss Brooks tell you?
Not yet, Harriet. Walter, Mr. Conklin wants to see the patient. Where did you put him?
I thought he'd sleep better in the closet, Miss Brooks.
In the closet? But he's a sick man. How can you put him in...
Listen, Daddy.
Step aside. I've got to get him out of there. Now, don't you worry, Mr. Boynton. I'm here to see that you get everything... Mr. Boynton! Miss Brooks, what's the meaning of this? This man is a fraud!
It's McDougal, Mr. Conklin.
You brief him, Harriet. I've got to answer the phone. Hello?
Well, hello, Miss Brooks. This is Mr. Boynton.
Mr. Boynton, I've been expecting you home. Where are you?
I'm in the hospital, Miss Brooks.
The hospital?
Yes, and I'm not quite clear on how it happened. There I was at the luncheon when suddenly, without any apparent reason, my eyes closed and I slid off my chair to the floor.
Well, what do you know? A delayed popover. Let me ask you the silliest question of the month. Did you eat anything?
Well, as a matter of fact, I did. After I had the regular lunch, Miss Brooks, the fellow next to me remarked that he wasn't hungry, so I sort of helped him out with his lunch, just to be sociable. When I woke up, I was in the hospital.
I suppose you already have a nurse taking care of you.
Yes, there are several nurses here, but, well, something's lacking. They're strangers, Miss Brooks, and at a time like this, a man should have around him only those he's genuinely fond of. That's why I was wondering if you'd do me a favor.
A favor? What is it?
Would you send McDougal right over here?
Mr. Boynton, I'll be only too happy to send McDougal over. Just tell me one thing.
What's that, Miss Brooks?
How do you want him, boiled or fried?
Eve Arden as our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first...
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl.
Tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives you Kay Daumit's magic blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid. Luster Cream shampoo leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed after a Luster Cream shampoo. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, yes, tonight, try Luster Cream shampoo.
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. You owe your crowning glory to a luster cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
Well, after a few hours in the hospital, Mr. Boynton returned home. Immediately following a very touching reunion with McDougal, he turned to me.
I can't tell you how grateful I am for all you've done, Miss Brooks.
Well, try.
Sitting here with Mac for me and being so concerned over my welfare, well, you've just been wonderful, Miss Brooks.
Maybe now you'll realize, Mr. Boynton, that I'm kind of handy to have around. I haven't had a chance to prove it yet, but believe me, Mr. Boynton, the next time you eat yourself into a coma, I can take just as good care of you as any doctor. Of course, my rates will be slightly different from the doctor's.
Different?
Yes, I can only afford to pay you about $1 a visit.
Show brought to you by Palmolive Soap, Your Beauty Hope, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, written and directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch.
At last, a good-tasting way to help prevent tooth decay. That's new Colgate ammoniated tooth powder, created in Colgate's research laboratories. Contains the revolutionary dental discovery that helps prevent new cavities, plus Colgate's exclusive foamy cleaning action and a refreshing minty flavor you'll enjoy. Get Colgate ammoniated tooth powder today. Economical 4-ounce size, only 43 cents. This week is National Farm Safety Week. Its purpose is to remind every member of every American farm family to think of safety first to make farm life a safer, happier, more prosperous way of life. Every day, 51 farm residents are killed by accidents. Every hour, 4 farm buildings are destroyed by fire. So take extra precaution. Put a stop to this needless injury and waste. Use farm machinery and deal with farm animals with caution. Cultivate safety and harvest happiness. Remember, safety is always in season.
For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. North Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at the same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.